My elbows! My elbows! They're hurting after a long day guiding on Sling Mountain. I'm here on Sling Mountain for one day only. I did try and get outside, I promise. Went to my normal spot at Lion Rock, got my phone out to just film quite how wild it was, filmed the waves, the trees, the dog, and as I turned it around to film myself, the wind literally blew it out of my hand onto the floor, thankfully not down the cliff. But the forecast is for like gusting up to 80 miles per hour today. Wasn't quite that windy at Lion Rock, but it was definitely like blowing me off balance and stuff. It's just so noisy because of the wind through the trees and stuff that I didn't think the video would be any good. So I thought I'd come back and reminisce on a freshly painted Sling Mountain. I am using whatever belay setup you want to believe that is. My trusty gigajoule that you'll see featured on the channel loads with a DMM Phantom HMS and a relatively skinny 9.1 triple rated rope. Pretty common setup for me. Excuse the dog yawning. Works really well. It works like a normal guide mode belay device. There's some friction going through there though. There is with any device of that type, be it an ATC guide or a DMM pivot, whatever you want to use. And it's fine, but if climbing instructors, guides like myself, you're doing a lot of belaying, then it does start to hurt. It's as simple as that. So I do get tweaky elbows from this that get aggravated by training, and then that's pointing up there because I train in my attic a lot, got a small bouldering thing up there, and then belaying. It's like a vicious circle really. So it's not always the most pleasant thing to use. Different combinations of carabiners and devices can improve it, and you've got to find what works for you. But what you will have seen, perhaps, if like me, you scroll through Instagram and look at YouTube videos and stuff, you would have seen this thing getting some traction on Instagram last year. Excuse the pun, because it's a micro traction, isn't it? This device, pretty funky. It's about £65, Gucci looking, isn't it? When you open it up, you will see there some little teeth, some real spiky little teeth actually. And in this bit, you will see a super smooth pulley. It's a really nice device. Retails at about £65. It is not a belay device. It is a progress capture device. It gets used as a belay device on Instagram at least. More common in other countries. I've never seen anyone using it in a belay device style in the UK. Doesn't mean they don't, but I've not seen it happen. The reason it happens in other countries is because perhaps their routes are longer and stuff. I do not carry one of these on my harness by default, work or play. I would if I was climbing in the Alps or somewhere where there's crevasses to worry about and rescue type things are suddenly more common than me on my multi-pitch crags in the UK. In the UK, I'll just carry Prussics and that sorts out all my rescue situations. So one reason I don't use this is I simply will not have it on my harness. But if I could obviously make an effort to carry it. It works really well. Okay, let me get rid of this bit. Like I say, it's about £65 and it's not a belay device. So it's not going to replace your gigajoule or whatever else you're going to carry. So that's extra cost. But you might find it worthwhile to you. You might find it worthwhile because it's already in your cupboard because you go to the Alps and you need it for crevasses and stuff like that. You don't need it for crevasses, but it just makes your life a lot easier. Now, let me get the rope in it first, getting it carried away. Load the rope in, it just opens up, and then it just sits over that little pulley bit. Spin it the correct way and it locks up, and you clip it in. This thing is super smooth to use, hot knife through butter and all that kind of thing. When you're pulling on it, because it's going over this pulley, it is just lovely. You can pull it through, super easy. You will not need to take in on that one. You'll just put both hands on the brake strand and pull, pull, pull. It's not a belay device. It is a progress capture device. Is it okay to belay on? Just because you've seen it on Instagram or YouTube, whatever, doesn't mean it's okay, does it? Take a look at the Petzl website and get the facts from there. That's the place to look for all these things. Whenever you see a video showing something, fact check it, whether it's me or whoever, just fact check it. It's really worth doing. Petzl say it's okay to use this as a belay device in a very niche set of circumstances, pretty much only one, using it as a top rope in this situation, as a top rope belay in this situation. The problem is those teeth. Whilst they are super grippy and nice, and it means when your climber falls off, you don't really have to hold on very hard at all, but still do keep holding on. Those teeth, though, dig into the sheath, right? If there's any slack in the system, on the Petzl website, it gets like a cross or a skull and crossbones, that kind of thing. They've got figures on that Petzl website because they've tested it, as you would imagine. I weigh 75 kilos, and the closest weight they've tested to that is 80 kilos on a 9mm rope, right? If I fall off with a metre of slack in the rope, I'm probably stripping the sheath of that rope. That is going to be scary. It's not snapping the rope, but I almost don't care. It's scary, isn't it, right? I do not want to be ever stripping the sheath of a rope, right? If you go up a weight category to 100 kilos, you only have to have 50 centimetres of slack. If you go up again another weight category, 120 kilos, you only need 25 millimetres of slack, and then you're stripping the sheath. And actually, if you have more slack, there is a reasonable chance of actually snapping the rope. Have a look on the Petzl website. I'll put a link in the description below. It's interesting. They test it with a different rope, a worn rope as well, and some other bits and pieces. So do take a look. If you think about it, when you're climbing as a second, how common is it to get a little bit of slack in the system? Pretty common, I'd say. I don't mean like meters and meters, but a little bit. Maybe you're fiddling with a bit of gear, you get it out, you start climbing again, your belay hasn't quite seen you climb straight away, so it takes them a moment to catch up. You slip off then, there's slack in it. What about getting to the belay? You know, when you're having a little faff at the belay and you're getting clipped in and stuff, how often is there just a little bit of slack in the system? You could fall off then for sure, having a moment. We can't really use this in a situation where a genuine fall is likely. So top roping only, we're not talking, it's not for lead belaying, it's not okay for that, but we do not want any slack in the system. So if you are going to use it, you've got to be really on it, like literally hauling the person up really, and super focused with it as well. So no good for slack. We don't really want to use it in a proper climbing situation. Clarify what I mean there. Scrambling, we call this in the UK, which is like mini mountaineering. It's that kind of terrain that Americans would probably refer to as class 3 or 4. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, because I have been to the States and I've climbed, but only once on a climbing trip. So I'm not completely au fait with it, but I think that's right. It could be winter stuff, snow slopes as well, that kind of thing. As soon as you're onto climbing terrain, like proper climbing terrain, slack going in perhaps is a little bit more likely, but falling is more likely. And if someone falls and you need to lower them, that's a right pain. Even if you've ticked all the boxes and there was no slack in it, it's still locked off with these nice teeth. With a guide mode style belay device, we can do a few different things. It's a bit of a faff, but we can solve it relatively quickly with some practice. You can still solve this, don't get me wrong, but there is like an extra layer releasing some slack into there, which just adds that extra little bit of faff. So I just avoid it in that kind of situation, really. Clearly, we can only use it for one rope as well, because it's, you know, it's a single rope thing, isn't it? That, as I say, progress capture device. So 65 pounds, relatively light, definitely very niche. What other options have we got for, you know, saving my elbows into my old age, which is, you know, creeping on closer and closer by the day? I've done a review on the Kong GG before. Instead of £65, it's about £10, depending on where you look. And you load it up. There it is, I'm up there already. I won't bother doing them up because I'm going to show a couple of things now. But this is super smooth. It's not like running over a pulley, so it's not as smooth as the Traxion. The Traxion is pretty much unbeatable for that, but it's pretty flippin' smooth to pull through. It's certainly smoother than my, wherever it's gone, Gigajoule over there. I can use this for top rope belaying, I can use it for abseiling actually as well, and I can use it with 2 people climbing at once, 2 ropes, or 1 person on half ropes. The setup is fractionally different, but you know, it works for that. It's nice and smooth and also nice and cheap, but also, actually importantly as well, nice and light. So you could conceivably carry your normal device and that for like very little weight penalty. That's not me saying the Traxion is weighty, far from it. What is a bit more weighty though is, I seem to have gone a bit colour-coded in my kit lately, but the good old Gree. You'll be familiar with those from sport climbing. You can use them on trad for lead belaying with some considerations. They potentially do put a bit more force through the top bits of gear. Whether that's an issue depends what kind of gear you've placed really. But you load it up. Right, there it is, just like that. Won't bother doing it up again just because of what I'm doing. Really smooth. Very, very smooth. Is it as smooth as a Micro Traxion? Well, it's not over an actual pulley, so no, it's not quite as smooth, but honestly, it's not far off. Again, one rope only, clearly. I can lead belay, I can top rope belay. How do you know you can top rope belay? Look at the Petzl site, they show it's okay. And also I can lower really easily as well. I've done a video on this, probably on Sling Mountain actually, but you redirect that to a fresh carabiner, crank the handle, and do it safely. Obviously, watch the video if you don't know how to do it. But you can lower really easily, even more easily than on a guide mode device. If I'm going climbing and I think I'm on a single rope and I think I'm going to have to be potentially lowering people because perhaps we're going climbing and we're trying harder stuff and they might not be able to do it. We're trying to push someone, and that's a really good device to do that kind of climbing with then. I love a Gree. Yeah, pricey, £65-ish, weighty relatively, but it is a good all-rounder. You cannot beat this kind of device, like I say, be it this one or the Black Diamond ATC guide, whatever, for like the just the general purpose nature of them. They really are great all-rounders. But they do hurt your elbows, that's fairly factual. If you're doing a lot of it. What else could you use? Well, you could go properly old school with the Italian hitch or a Munter hitch. It's the same thing, different names, different regions. You can do it one-handed, but I was behind the game there. Is it as smooth as a Gree or a Micro Traxion? No, there's probably a bit more friction in it than that. There's no weight penalty for carrying it. It's some folds in the rope, isn't it? You can do it with two ropes, bit of a faff. I'd rather do it on one rope only. There's no assisted braking with it, is there? Right, it is. If you let go and the person falls off, they are sliding. There is a locking version. I'm going to do a short. I might have done it already by the time this video comes out, or I might do it in a couple of days. We're going to do a short of the locking version. That has its own problems as well, but it's a nice one to have in the brain cells, isn't it, to whip out should you need to. So the point of this video was kind of, do I ever belay with a Micro Traxion? And as I've said, no, partly because I just don't carry it, but in terms of sort of a cost benefit analysis, looking at the pros and cons, that kind of thing, for me, just the pros of it, which is really that elbow friendly nature, do not outweigh the cons of it. I don't really see the point, but I'm not doing like mega long routes where it's just like pitch after pitch after pitch. The longest routes I do in a work sense are probably like 4 pitches or something. So it's not super long things. So when I say I don't use it and the benefit to me is not enough to start carrying it, that doesn't mean because someone else on Instagram who may be in America or something like that says it's a good thing to use, doesn't mean that I'm saying they're wrong or anything. I'm just saying about my particular usage case. You might have one already if you're doing Alps trips. You might have one already if you're doing like top rope soloing. You might have one already if you're doing like simul climbing. We don't do a lot of simul climbing for similar reasons in the UK. We just don't have the routes that really dictate it. So it's a great option to do. But it is a thing, isn't it? Have a look on the Petzl website. Like I say, the links is in the the description below. Always fact check people. Fact check me. Fact check Joe blogs on Instagram, whatever. Don't take our word as gospel. Do your own research. It's really important that. Am I going to start carrying one because I've done this video? No, not personally. It lives in the cupboard for when I do the occasional bit of top rope sewing. It's a good backup for that. Or like I say, if I do get back to the Alps, which maybe I will one day, it's an ace place to be if you've never been. Click below in the comments and write something there if you've got any questions or anything you've noticed. Are you going to start using one? Do you use one already? Really interested to hear your thoughts on it. As always, though, you know what to do. The rest of it, click the like button, smash the subscribe button. First on Instagram, give us a follow there. Use the buy me a coffee link to support the channel. Me and the boys down there now. You get some dog treats, I get some coffee or whatever. The support, as always, massively appreciated. As I say every time though, massive thanks for watching. More videos hopefully outside, coming soon.